All right, so this is a heck of a title, Building Modern Windows Applications with Visual C++ 2010. It's a bit of a mouthful, but fundamentally we're just going to talk about how Windows 7, in conjunction with the latest stuff we've done in VC, allows you to build really great user experiences on what we would call a modern kind of client application. Oh boy. Should I wait for the door to be closed? Or are we going to keep it open? I can't see. OK. Well, I'm going to assume we're good to go, because I need the time. All right. So Windows 7, and to some extent, of course, Windows Vista before it, introduced a lot of great functionality for developers, for client developers specifically. And I'm not going to spend my time showing you slides about these APIs. It's about jumping in and doing it in the code, which is what I'm going to do in about 10 seconds. But I want to just summarize kind of some of the things we're going to go through today as we look at kind of my app that I'm going to illustrate this with. And the ideas are what the OS brings to you and how that's exposed to you as a developer, new programming models that are unlocked through kind of the latest innovations in the C++ language. We finally have some innovations, right? C++ 0x, the standard that we've been waiting for years, is so close to being done. And we've actually jump-started in this release and put in a bunch of the functionality that has kind of been signed off on into the product. And I always want to illustrate kind of my bread and butter that I work on the IDE and the productivity of the tool and all the things that we've done to make Visual Studio, the tool, more effective for you. All right. Wow. I apologize for the crazy animations there. All right. I'm going to launch the application up front and just show it to you. This is my super awesome, highly modern application. As you can tell, it's modern because, well, it has black frame. Black is cool. No, really what this does is this is going to help me browse pictures. So I'm going to load up all the pictures from the Windows themes and show you, unless it fails, cool animation. This main frame, so the application that I'm working with here, and we're going to start extending, is an MFC application. All right? And that's the ribbon you see is an MFC ribbon that we've updated the look and feel. And the frame, though, is rendered using Direct2D, which is a technology that's now part of Windows that really brings the power of 3D style work and the power of your graphics card to you, the kind of, hopefully, I suppose most of you are two-dimensional kind of application programmers, but the game developers among you probably are comfortable with these kinds of technologies. But what's amazing is it allowed me, someone who's really quite a poor programmer, to create experiences like this, right? And this, I could not have done this with straight up GDI, right? And this is all really easy to do with D2D. And I'm going to illustrate one little feature that we're going to add just now to show you kind of like the idea of a high-level API. This is not the original Win32 APIs. These are kind of the latest that Windows has built. And they're a lot more accessible as a developer. So if I open a picture, you'll notice that I didn't implement the left and right rotation. And that's just because I forgot, or so I'll say. So the first thing I'll do, by the way, before we go and fix up that code, is I want to talk about Visual Studio a little bit. I kind of tried to keep the Chrome minimal, because I have a tiny screen. You'll notice it's blue. This is the first significant visual update in over 10 years. Hopefully you like it. But believe it or not, it's actually all WPF and XAML styled. So in the long term, we think that we'll be able to do a lot better in terms of customization of the feel of the application as any way you like. And part of that customization story, and I'm not going to go into details, there are other talks that you can go to at PDC that I'll list at the end where you can learn about this, is we've really tried to push the story around extensibility in VS 2010. And a great example of that is what I call the extension manager here. How many of you have already played with the beta, by the way? Okay, not too many. This is great. This is possibly one of the best features in the product, the ability to just go ahead and one-click install extensions to the product. Now, some of these are the traditional extensions that you might have already installed on VS, and they can be deployed through this gallery, which, cross your fingers, the internet will work. But in this release, we've actually made it way more approachable to extend certain parts of the product, specifically the editor. So I really like working with the mouse, and what I'm about to do is hopefully install an extension that will help me navigate the editor with my mouse. So here we go. I've got this gallery, and I'm going to look for a go to definition extension. I hope there's something around this. Perfect. How did I know this was going to be there? So control-click to perform a go to definition. Right? I'm going to download that. It's got a simple Microsoft license on this one. And there's even a picture to show me what it's going to do. And that's it. I'm just going to restart, and the functionality will now be part of my IDE experience. And I'm not going to show you the code. Like I said, there are talks where you can go and learn how to write these extensions, but they are really dramatically easier than they have ever been. And I tell you this in all honesty because I'm able to write them, and that's a first. So now I can actually control-click, and my editor has been extended after the fact. This was done with no knowledge of C++. It applies to the C# language service, the C++ language service. It's just using our underlying functionality and just making a call and changing the UI. So this is really compelling, and there's going to be there's already kind of a great set of extensions, and you can build your own for your own purposes and really kind of use the editor surface to do fascinating things. I mean, you could play videos on the surface as you were coding. If that was interesting to do. OK, so I talked about the rotation code. Let's go and fix the rotation code. As part of that, I'm going to show you by far my favorite feature in the product, primarily because I made it. But it's the ability to navigate to anywhere in your source code at any time, whether it's a file or a symbol. And so I'm going to first jump to our image class to show you, whoops, that's not our image class. That's the GDI image class. I'm going to hide external items and go to my image class. And I notice that it has a current angle, and I'm actually updating it, but I'm not doing anything with it. So I'm going to jump to the rendering code, which is probably something about images and rendering. And you see it has the fuzzy search ability based on kind of the syllables that you're looking for. So that's mine. All right. So this will give you a taste of kind of the way Direct2D works at a high level. You're just extracting a bitmap, and then I'm drawing it on this render target in a rectangle. That's not so bad. So what I'm going to do is I want to transform the picture before I draw it. So on the render target, I'm going to set a transform. And that's expecting this D2, D1 matrix. So if I look in that namespace, there we go. It has a rotation. Awesome. And what do I need to give it? Just the angle. All right, well, I have that. That's image.currentAngle. And the center point, which I have the center X and center Y there. So I'm just going to create the point to F and hand it center X, center Y. That's kind of the point on which it's going to rotate. And I can rerun that, and the rotation code will be there. And I'm really not hiding a ton of code here. This is straight up D2D. This is the API level that Windows provides. And it's pretty compelling to be able to do these kinds of transformations and have them use the graphic card underneath to make it blazing fast. So if I go back to my folder, I've got my pictures, and now rotation works. Yay. All right. Well, that's not really the definition of a modern application. And this is actually not a solved answer, or sorry, a solved problem per se, but we want over the next, in this release and the next ones, to help you build what we like to think of as modern client application experiences. So what is that, right? And I'm not going to say I have the final answer, but I think to some degree, it involves great look and feel, right? The kinds of things that it doesn't have to be sexy for the sake of it. It doesn't have to do this just for the fun of it, although I like that. But something around a rich visual experience, I think, is more and more important to our users. And so the ribbon is part of that. And Direct2D, and that it enables you to do these things, is part of that. But what else? I think connected is one of the things that people want nowadays out of their applications, right? It should be connected to the web or to my social network. It should be fast. It should be responsive. That's kind of the C++ bread and butter. And it should be safe, too. I mean, I don't want to be worried about failures or reboots of my OS because a security update got installed, and that might affect my application and my state. All those things are things that people care about, and I think should be addressed when you're building a modern application. So before I dive, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add the web connectivity to this application. Because loading the pictures from my folder is all well and good, but I think it'd be a lot cooler to load them from the web. So that's what we're going to do. But before I go into that, I mentioned that C++ 0x is coming out soon, and we've integrated a lot of the functionality from that release, from that standard. And I'm going to show you a lot of those over the course of the talk. But the first one I want to show you is actually kind of a little bit of work to wrap your mind around at the beginning, but will unlock tremendous benefit. So before I go there, I'm going to ask you a simple question. Who likes performance gains for free? Yeah? Yeah. OK. Who has ever wanted to put something in a container, like a vector or a map, but the object could not be copied, and you had to do some crazy stuff with making it into a pointer and manage the lifetime? Anybody? OK. Or what if you had a really large object that copying it was expensive, and you didn't want to pay that cost of copying whenever you resize the vector, so you created, again, a kind of a pointer-based wrapper container, or no container at all? Yeah, a couple times? All right. So I'm going to go back to my image. And you're going to notice this is a simple object. It just holds the path to the images and pointers to the bitmaps themselves. And it has a copy constructor and an assignment operator. You've been writing these for what? As long as you've been doing C++. And in C++ 0x, we've now enabled the ability to move objects rather than copy them. And this is with a feature called R-value references, which you may have heard of. And what it is the ability to say, well, in this context, I would be binding to a temporary, something that cannot be assigned to. So why create one? Why copy it to then throw away the other one? This is just a useless copy. And there are ways to optimize those temporaries to not be created, but in the general case, you can't. And what the language now enables you to do is say, well, I can move this object. If the user is trying to move it as opposed to copy it, I can give you that power. And so I'm going to show you how to write a move constructor and a move assignment operator. And you'll find that they're quite analogous to these two. So I'm just going to copy them. There's my copy cases. Whoops. And I'm going to show you one of the neat features of VS 2010. So right now, it looks identical. So what I'm going to do is say, well, I'm not actually binding to a const reference. I'm binding to an R-value reference. It takes 2 ampersands. And you can think of this as something that cannot be assigned to. So a value, right? The number 1 could not be assigned to. And then here, I'm also taking an R-value reference. But I'm still returning a reference to the image. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm not copying. Right now, this is copy code. So I want to move all of these things. So that's what I'm going to write. I'm going to just call std move with this cool new block selection feature in 2010. So you can actually type as you go. All right, and I'm just going to finish that off. All right, so it doesn't handle the, that part, but OK. And you'll notice that it brought up IntelliSense, even though I'm on 4 different things at the same time. And that's all I have to do. I'm done. I now have a move constructor and a move assignment operator. Granted, this was a simple case, because we've already made it happen for strings. So I'm saying move the strings. And we've already made it happen for things like the ccom pointer, which is what these are using. And so it just moves those as well. And now, as I put this into the vector, and it's not going to be visible in terms of the performance for the amount of images I was using here, but we would actually be moving these into the vector, and as the vector resized, you would incur no copying whatsoever. And that's pretty compelling for significant objects. And it allows you to actually write vector of image. Right? If I go back down here, my image vector is actually of the object. It's not of a pointer to it. It's not an auto pointer. It's actually the object. And I can do that because I get the performance that I expect and the semantics that I expect in terms of destruction and so on and so forth. OK, so that was just a little digression into the first of kind of these C++ 0x features. But I talked about connectivity. So I have this great MFC application. It's native, it's C++. Oh, where'd my pictures go? And I want to get the images from Bing. I want to go download pictures from Bing. Well, in Windows 7, we've created native web services support. So now you can natively talk to WCF web services, just any kind of SOAP web service that you can think of, you can talk to it, whether it's written in Ruby or C# or C++. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to jumpstart that a little bit by adding an existing project, which is a small wrapper around that code. I'm just going to show you. It's really just a couple of files, and they just wrap in C++ some of the generated code from the WSDL tool. How many people have done some kind of web services programming, client or server? OK. So you'll see in the code here, if I remove show all files, that what I've got in the library, this is a little static library, is the search.wisdle.c and search.wisdle.h. These are the files that are generated by the tool that reads the WSDL file, right, and creates the proxies that which you're going to talk to the web service. Now, how many of you would check in those files into your source control tree? None, right? You would want to check in the source, the WSDL file, and have a tool in your build that generates the C and the H file. And that's what we're going to do here. I'm going to show you how easy it is to extend the build system in VS 2010 to make it do the right thing, which is what you want. And the way we achieve that is that we've actually changed our build system to be MS Build. MS Build is now the one build system for all languages. So you don't have to go figure out two different build systems if you're working in C# and C++, which, rumor has it, some of you do both. And this is the same build system that builds Visual Studio, all of it, all 50 million lines. And we think that it's actually a really compelling build system. It has great diagnostics. And in this release that I'm going to show you, it has really cool extensibility. So what I want is, I'm going to show you this idea of build customizations. And it's right here. I've wrote this wrapper, this targets file and props file, which wrap the web services proxy tool, this little wsutil.exe that ships as part of the SDK. Because what I want, and I just jump back to the code here, I'll show you where it is here. Here I am. These are simply XML files. If I open one of them in Notepad, you will see these are very simple XML files. And all they do is describe the task that is going to run as part of the build. What files is it supposed to build? What are the options that it has? And you simply describe that. You can write this XML. And now you have a task that's part of your build that fully participates in the build. Because I could write a little post-build step that runs, run this utility on the WSDL file, generate C and H, and good to go. But that would run every time. You would have to do your own input and output management, and you would not get any of the efficiencies of a build system. And no one should be in the business of grokking dependencies. This is just hard work, and we already do it. So when I do this, I actually now have, one thing I didn't do is add the WSDL file. So it's right here, and I'm going to include it in my project. And you'll see, that I now have this web service compiler and it's, I can fully customize it. I have all these options that I've wrote down in it, and one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to go on the WSDL file and say, you know what, for all these configs, let's just put no warnings. I don't want any warnings. There we go. And I could, at this point, delete the C in the header file, and it will simply generate them. So you'll see the library is being regenerated, and the wsutil tool is the one right there. It ran. I know it's tiny font, but just trust me, it ran. So that's kind of a taste of what this build system allows you to do. I'm not going to go in depth on this functionality. We're going to have lots of documents on how you can do this. But the idea is, this is actually a build system that you can make fit to all the needs that you have. We're pretty confident that you can make it do whatever you need it to do in your organization, while still getting kind of the power that it provides, which is a great build tool, dependency tracking, and so on and so forth. Actually, another great feature that it has is it's really good. You know how you have those problems sometimes where the project always builds, right? It gives you great diagnostics as to why that's occurring. We've actually found a case where it was because a file was in the future, and therefore the build was always running. OK, so I added my library. I'm going to add it as a dependency here, so just to make sure that we do it right. And little song and dance we have to do in C++ is add it as an input library. Whoops. So I will do that. Everyone's done this, right? There we go. So now I want to use it, right? I want to use this library. First thing we need to do is add a button to that beautiful ribbon. And to do that, well, let's go to our, where would a ribbon be? It would be in my RC file, right? So let's go to my RC file. And there's my ribbon. It's a resource. It's actually a file. We've made it. Last year, if you were here, I presented the ribbon, and you could build it in code. That's not very nice. What you want is to have it as a resource, a file, that you can then edit in a designer. And that's what we have in Visual Studio 2010. So now we have this great ribbon designer. I could do silly things like invert my buttons here, but I won't do that. What I want to do is add a button right there, next to open folder. So let's go to our toolbox and add a button, and we'll call it, instead of from folder, we'll call it from web. How does that sound? Let's give it a sweet icon. How about that one? It's got an arrow. It's got everything. And I will call it ID open web or something. All right. So there it is. It's great. I can even test out the look and feel of the ribbon without launching my application. So there it is. And OK, it looks like it's going to click just great. I need to hook it up, right? We're not done yet. So how many of you in the room have used VC6? OK. That was a pretty good tool. It was all right. It was all right. There was one good feature in it, I think, that deserves to be resurrected. And that's this one right here, the class wizard. So if anyone ever does MFC work, this was such a useful tool. And not only did we bring it back, but we made it better. We didn't just rest on our laurels here. We've actually added some great functionality to it, right? So you can do the usual things, like handle messages, implement virtual functions. But you can also search. So now I can just search for the command web. Because in our day and age, there are a lot of messages and a lot of commands in large applications. I mean, you can just look at the list of window messages here. It'd be nice to be able to search through that, right? So here's my web command. And I'm just going to add a handler on open web. It's on my view. Great. And I could do 3 more things, right? Anyone who's familiar with this tool will know that you can stay in the wizard and add 18 members and 18 handlers and then go and edit, which is kind of the nice part. You don't constantly have to go back and forth into the code. OK, well, I'm going to paste in some code because I like to cheat. And lots of errors. Notice I didn't have to compile to get these errors. It's telling me, well, obviously, I don't have any of these Bing tools because I didn't include the headers. The thing is, though, I always forget the name of the header. So, there we go. OK, Bing. And so now we have IntelliSense kind of in all the places you'd expect to have IntelliSense, right? And, there's one more, right, I think. Well, let's go down there. Oh, yeah, the Web Image Manager. All right, so let's go there. And include web. There we go. So it filters So because the list of include files, especially when you do something like this, is really quite large. So the ability to filter is nice, right? Where you can go web, and there you suddenly, or WBE, turns out we have that too. Web, yeah, we have a header for everything. So okay, I've added the functionality, and I'm just gonna run you through this. It's pretty simple, right? I'm just instantiating this little, sorry, I'm putting it on the stack. I have this little Bing service and this manager for the objects, and then it does a search, and it puts that on a pointer, and then I iterate through those results, and I download each picture from the web, and I add it to my vector of images, and then I make them animate, and they're good to go. So that should work. That was easy. If connecting to the web is that simple, I mean, everyone should do it. All right, let's get pictures of the Microsoft campus. Oh, wow. That's terrible. I'm a horrible programmer, clearly. What is going on? Well, I wrote a little mistake there. Terrible. Can't believe I did that. I left that in on purpose. All right, so let's run this again. That was really not on purpose. OK, so Microsoft campus. Oh, there it is. The reason is that was in my cache. So I cheated. That was not on the internet. Let's do it without a cache. Remember I talked about users want connected applications, but they also want responsive and fast applications? Right now, I can't even see my cursor because we're synchronously downloading all these images before they show up. Right? I'm not exiting out of this function until I got all the pictures off the web. And clearly, the performance of the web at PDC, not so good. So this is not good. This is not how users want their application to behave. And so let's make that better. Let's make this asynchronous. Let's make this asynchronous and something I can cancel, and I can see the progress as it happens. All of that is kind of expected in our day and age. And it turns out we have great tools for that as well. There are some great talks that I highly recommend. The most important one you go to is the one after lunch today, which is all about this concurrency revolution and how we're building great native C++ APIs and tools to help you do that. And so I'm going to illustrate that right now. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to go to my precompile header and add support for concurrency. So here I am. I'm going to add the PPL. That's what it's called. Not P2P. PPL. There we go. Now, I'll have you notice, my project is not rebuilding IntelliSense right now. I just edited my precompile header. It's doing a little bit of work just to see if I have new files to go parse, which the ppl.h was. And that's it. I didn't have to go recompute the state of the world. We made some serious changes to IntelliSense to enable it to scale. But we're still in the exact correct state. In fact, if I go back to my view here, I can just show you we now have all the contents of that namespace right here. So we do bring in the exact state that you're in the CBP file that you're working in. But that scales really well relative to parsing 100 projects with 10,000 files every time you edit a header. So that's kind of, I talked about scale of the tool and the usability. This is one of those things. So let's go ahead and use that namespace because I'm too lazy to type it and I'm dyslexic, it turns out. OK, so what do we want to do? I want to package this loop, right? This core function which downloads an image and puts it into our list and animates it. And I'll do that on a background task. So one of the ways we can do that is with something called the task group. So let's add this task group. It's a simple API. It's a simple object. First, I'm going to add it as a member variable to my view, because you can use the class wizard for everything. So you don't have to just add ints. You could just add a concurrency task group, and we'll call it web tasks. I'll make it private. There it is. OK, great. And you'll see that if I go to my C photo view, to the declaration of my, let's use our cool control click. It's down here. It got added, right? Of course, and the PPL was already in my std effects, so it compiles just fine. Now we still need to do something with it, so let's go back to our handler. And well, the simplest thing we could do is package this entire for loop in a task and say, just run this in the background. And the way you would do that is go web tasks.run, and this expects a function, right? That's what this wants to run. But I have a for loop. I don't have a function. So this is where a great C++ feature comes in, which is lambda expressions, which allow me to efficiently right here describe work that I want to package in essentially as a function to be scheduled anywhere. So this is how you create one, right? And then I'm closing my function call. You get a lot of these kind of curly braces followed by parentheses now, and you get a lot of squiggles. You get a lot of errors. This is not good. Anyone know why? You don't need to know. There's help right here. You can just hover. It'll tell you. You're not allowed to refer to these variables inside a lambda because they could totally be out of scope, right? They have no meaning. This is actually running in any possible context. So let's capture that information. I could be cheesy and just say, all right, let's capture it all. Right? That says take it all. This is saying be like C#, right? Just take everything by reference. Don't think about your code. Don't think about what the performance implications are, the correctness implications are. Just do it. Now let's see if in the real world that actually succeeds. It might, but oh, we're actually going to have a problem because this task is going to run, but when is it going to end, right? We kind of enforce you to think about waiting for your task to end. So this is going to assert. So before it does that, I'm going to fix it. So let's go to our destructor for our view right there. And I'm just going to add webtasks.wait. This is just to say, well, sometime by the time our view's gone, I want to make sure this task gets cleaned up. All right. Here we go. This is going to be good. Microsoft Campus. Fail. So predictable. All right, well, what's going on? This is going to be a crazy call stack. It's saying, I don't know. Oh, res is 0. That's not good. How did that happen? Well, let's see. These objects are the ones that actually hold this search response. And, well, this is just a function call, right? So they all fell out of scope right there. And they got destroyed, and that search response is useless, right? It's a dead pointer. By the time this is actually scheduled to run, which happens in the background, this is bad. So capturing by reference didn't really help me there. So what is it that I want to do? How do I fix this? What do I want? I don't want to lose my stack semantics. I like the fact that this is clean. I'm not allocating and thinking about how to delete it. But at the same time, it doesn't fit here, right? I need it to stay in scope for as long as these tasks or this lambda expression, wherever it's going to be, is going to run. So what I want, I guess, is to share access to these objects, right? But I don't want to copy them. I just want to share access to them. So in C++0x and TR1, which we shipped in the previous release, we actually have this great functionality, which is the shared pointer. Think of this as auto pointer done really right. And I can just wrap these in shared pointer and say, well, this is very easy to construct. I don't have to, we'll call that. And this guy is a new C web image manager. And then, of course, that's not going to work, right? Because it's a pointer. All right. Let's give it pointer types. We're almost home free, I guess. All right. Well, I'm still capturing by references. That's still not good. What we want to do is capture these shared pointers by copy. Right? Because this will now say copy the pointer. Right? And we could rename the variable to be more obvious about that. But I'm not actually copying the object. I'm just copying the shared pointer, which is perfect. That implicitly will do add ref, right? And it will go away exactly at the right time without me having to think about it. So you get the beauty of the value semantics of C++. You don't have to think about the lifetime. It's going to be correct. It's going to be what you expect based on the blocks that we've built. All right, well, we still have to capture, well, the pointer. Well, we can capture that by value and, well, my document. Now I'm going to be explicit about everything so that we actually think about this. And I'm going to capture my this variable and be very clear that this is, this. Okay? Oh, speak of the devil. We can make this clean now in C++, 0x. We have a null pointer fundamental concept after all these years of using macros to define what was a null pointer. So I'm not advocating you go back in your early code and change null to null pointer. But going forward, you can use kind of the core language concept, which is this. And it gets blue, which is great. In fact, let's make this one blue too. There we go. Excellent. That's beautiful. OK, so now things should work, right? I have the document so that I can call the add image. I'm keeping these in scope so they can get called. Anyone know what might go wrong? All right, cool. Nobody. Excellent. Let's do it. Because it can't be that easy. Parallelism should never be this simple, right? We're trying to make it simple, but it can't be perfectly simple. But I'm going to show you how. Oh, failed again. I'm failing deep in my controller code. And that's simply because I'm adding to a vector, right? If I go to the definition of this, this is a vector. Anybody know if std vector is thread safe and concurrent? Yeah, no. So let's fix that. We've built that too. We figure you're going to use containers. We should allow you to stay with the container logic that you're familiar with, but provide you safe concurrent versions of those. So if I go pound include vector, aha, concurrent vector. It's as simple as that. Well, I guess I have to switch this one to be a concurrent vector. So otherwise, it's the same. It supports like 90% of the same API as a vector, but it doesn't support the things that are impossible, so to speak, to support in a multi-threaded world, which is things like insert. So you can only push back. Right? You can kind of use the vector as a queue. But that's OK. I think the majority of people use vectors that way. And it's good for you to realize that when you make it concurrent, when you want to have concurrent access to that, things like insert are really hard to get right. And the beauty of this is I'm still not locking. Right? I have yet to write a lock in this code, and I won't. So you get kind of the best of all worlds. So let's run that. Now I'm able to add the images on a background thread. So things should just work now. Oh, fail again. It's terrible. OK. There's still a problem. Let me go back to my view. The problem is it's not OK to animate on a background thread. Right? This is not OK in the world of MFC and all that. So this whole view that I'm capturing here and calling, that's not how I want to do it. What I want to do is do this in the background, and then let's do the Windows thing. Let's post a message back to my main thread to then do the work. Right? That seems to be a better approach. So first I'm going to, just for the sake of it, I'm going to show you another sweet feature here. I'm going to package up this functionality in its own Lambda, just so it's clearer. So here we go. So that's its own little Lambda now. Oops. And here I will capture all these things correctly. This part's lots of fun. And it actually, I wanted to take int I, because I'm going to pass that in a loop. So now this is going to get a little bit funkier. So what am I doing here? I'm actually not going to do a for. I'm going to do a parallel for and call it from 0, unsigned, because it's unsigned actually, to this number over here. And I don't need to customize the step function. I'm just going to call load image. Right? And so I've encapsulated very locally here this information. Now I have a task group that's going to run in the background, and itself is going to spawn tons of tasks to do this stuff in parallel. Probably about, well, probably not 15, which is how many pictures I'm going to download, but probably enough that my CPU will be well covered. So now I can actually clean this up as well and just say, well, I'm going to capture, I don't really need to capture most of this. I just need to capture the service because I want it to live for the lifetime of the task. And then in the parallel for, I've already captured all the things that I needed. Actually, I don't need you because I already captured above. Actually, I'll leave it in just for the sake of it. So now I've got that packaged nicely. Now I need to get rid of this, right? This is not cool. This is not thread safe to do. So I'm going to go ahead and bring the class widget up again. And this time we're going to create a custom message. So I go to messages. Let's call it WM new image. So really it's like a one-stop shop for everything you want to do in MFC, or in Windows really. So now I've got our message handler. There we go. Apply that. OK. And now down here I have this great thing. I'm just going to take you. I mean, it's really as simple as that. You know, if it pasted the way I wanted. Ah. Yeah. And I can get rid of this now because that's pretty obvious. OK. So now here, all I'm going to do is go this post message. And what am I? Oh, yeah, WM new image. Right? I was able to stay in my context, by the way, the whole time. Right? I created that custom message. I didn't have to go and edit my header at the time. It went and did that work that I needed to do and allowed me to stay right here working on my problem, quote unquote, which is I'm trying to make this parallel and responsive. Yeah, I do want to stop debugging. This whole time we were debugging. Right. What? Yes. Load image probably needs to be captured as well, because that's something that's in the current scope as well. OK. Go get some of those pictures. There they are. OK, that was great. It worked. That was in the background in parallel. Right? That's what just happened. We ran this load image task from a background thread, and that spawned many possible tasks. In fact, if I stop in here, let's put a breakpoint there, and let's run this in the debugger. I'm going to show you a great way to look at this stuff, which is, you could look at the threads window, and we've improved the threads window in this release, so it has a lot of information. But as you can tell, my application has a lot of worker threads that probably have nothing to do with the problem I'm trying to solve. And I could hover over the call stacks and take a look. Or I could search the call stacks, actually. But instead, I know I'm working with tasks. And this is kind of the higher level concurrency concept, which is a task as opposed to a thread. And I can look at the list of tasks. And OK, I have one running and one waiting. And that's really cool, right? It doesn't, with threads, you only know what's actually currently running or blocked. Here, you can not only see what's waiting, which is blocked or running, but also, I'm not creating enough tasks here, but we could see scheduled tasks as well, because we expose that information up. So you can see how many things are going to be running, and they're all sharing the same context in this case. So, by the way, just gratuitously, I got to show you, like I'm on a pretty small laptop, and I don't like to have all these tool windows open all the time. You notice I constantly go back. Well, wouldn't it be great to just like take this and hold it on my editor screen, because my editor screen's huge. Okay? So you can keep that there now as you debug. So we could run through this. I is 8, right? I is 9. That's really sweet. And then you could even, this is a small variable. You can even comment in there. And that'll stick around across debug sessions as well. So if I exit out and come back, it'll say, well, I don't have a new value for it right now, but you had it there before, and so I'll save what you saw. It's pretty neat. You can even unpin it from the current source location. So you see how it's pinned here. You could unpin it, and then as I went to other places, it would stick around. If I cared about this global variable maybe, right? But I don't want to constantly go back and go to my Watch window or hover over this other file and go find the variable where it was. You could just keep this thing at all times just in your dashboard on your editor. And really, I have way more screen real estate right here than I do on my down at the bottom. All right, so this works really well. It has one thing missing. Cancellation, right? What if the web is really slow and I want to cancel downloading these images? Well, the task group gives me the ability to do that really nicely as well. So let's go back to our photo.rc. Great, and let's add one more button, just because. Oh, I lost my toolbox. Okay, that was unexpected. Well, it's not a demo. Oh, I'm in the debugger. Touche. I seem to forget that I'm working at the debugger. Okay, so let's go back to my RC. And here we go. There's my toolbox. So let's add one more button. And we'll call this guy cancel. And I'll give him a big pause button. And call it cancel download. Right? And then here I can go with the traditional add event handler, which we've had for years, so we don't throw this stuff away. And there we go. And in here, what am I going to do? Well, web tasks.cancel. It's as simple as that. And this will do a best effort. This is not going to call like some kind of hardcore terminate thread. But at the earliest possible time, it will end the tasks that are running. So what I'm going to do is clear the cache. Go download Microsoft Campus. Notice the images. Whoa, the internet is really fast here, actually. But you see how the images are coming in? And I could cancel them at any time, and that'll just stop. They'll stop streaming in at that point. So with very little amount of additional code, ultimately, I mean, you have to wrap your mind around some of the Lambda expressions and things like this. And by the way, you don't have to think about what is the type of this thing. You can just put it into a type, auto, get it right. And we actually give you the IntelliSense as if you then call it as a function, right? Which is nice, because that's how you should treat it. So we didn't really change the code. And when I look at this, I'm not seeing thread creations. I'm not seeing a lot of orthogonal kind of code designed to handle concurrency and parallelism and asynchronicity. I have more or less the code I have with a little bit of clear words that say, well, run this on a task and cancel this, right? And do this in parallel. So it's a really expressive way of doing this while getting all the right behavior and semantics and performance that you want. So we think this is just kind of the beginning of using these kinds of tools. And if you go to the talk after lunch, it'll be much more about how to make things really scale, make them use 48 cores really efficiently on your C++ application. And that's super cool. And I'm not demoing that. But I think day to day, you're trying to make things responsive to the user. And this is one of the cornerstones of that. So the last thing I'm going to add to our app before we close down the demo is I talked about users want to feel comfortable, I think, right? I want to trust the app I'm working with. And the truth is, some people write bad code, right? I wrote some really bad code here that dereferences null. I like to do this. And if I ran this, well, it would crash and it would be terrible. Wouldn't it be great to save the state I was in? Well, in MFC and in Win7, we've combined the two features of the restart manager that is built into Windows. And MFC, we've made it like literally 2 lines of code, or 1 line of code really to get it going. So let's go there. I'm going to go into the app this time, right? And in my constructor, I want to enable this restart manager support. And you can do this to any MFC application, and it'll just work. So first of all, as always, we must include something. Or type include correctly. There we go, restart manager, and then I'll even include the other one, which is, by the way, you notice the search for the headers is substring based. So you don't have to remember the exact prefix. You can just say data, and like, there it is. Okay, so I'm here, and I'm going to go, well, I'm not really good at remembering this thing, so where is it? There it is. Okay, now we need to give this a crazy macro. Now, earlier when I said my favorite feature, the one I worked on, that navigation that I've been using like 18 times, I lied. That's not my favorite feature. My favorite feature in this release is the following. Oh no, this is not the time to fail me. There we go. The browser takes a while to heat up. I just typed F1, and it worked. And this works really well. I'm talking, we can differentiate now, I mean, between, like, if I go back to, what is it, init instance, or like something that is actually used both in Win32 or MFC, we can differentiate between those two things. So if I actually go to, oh yeah, invalidate rect, right? Let's go back to my view at the bottom here. This function, right? This could be the Windows one, it might not be. It might even be a Windows CE thing, right? That's terrible. No, we get it right. We get the right platform and the right API. So you can actually use F1 again after, I don't know how many years. Yes, it's truly, truly a beautiful thing. OK, so now, looking at this web page, I see that I want to pass all aspects. That's what I want, everything. So where was I? There we go. Equals that. And I'm going to customize one other thing, which is the rate at which I'm going to autosave, because we've added the we've added the ability to autosave your documents for you, as long as you kind of where is it? There we go. Get data recovery handler. These are all the defaults, and then I'm just going to set the autosave interval to 5 seconds. I'm going to constantly autosave. And now, you got to make sure not to debug when you're testing this, because of course crashes will be handled by the debugger. And I'm going to go and get my cool pictures here, right? And they all work. And it was a lot of work to figure out what I wanted here, and rotate them, and whoop, previous next stopped working. But I have this great library, and I don't want to lose it if my Windows machine updates, right? Your email doesn't go away when your Windows machine restarts for a security update, or, like I said, terrible programmers who write crashes in the application and actually label them crash here. That would be really sad if that took away my work. And I want to feel good in this application. I don't want that to happen. You'll notice that I'm talking and talking to go over 60 seconds, because I can't crash this application until 60 seconds go by. Actually, Windows is actually really, it's a tweak that makes a lot of sense. We deem that if you crash within 60 seconds, you're probably an unstable application, and we don't want to loop restart you all the time, right? So I'm going to crash the app. And look, traditionally this would say close or debug. And now it says, well, I can restart because I'm aware. Like the MFC application has said, I subscribe to the restart manager. And look at that. It says, I recall there was some documents that you didn't save. Let's recover that, and all my images come back. Right, so this is the kind of experience people want out of a client application. There's no reason with Windows that you can't achieve that. This is like two function calls. Actually, really one function call. OK. So one of the cool things about building this app, really, the whole reason I did it was I had this dream that I could not use PowerPoint. So I saved all my slides as pictures. And let's show off, again, I talked about the cool animations you can do in D2D. Is it going to go full screen on the projector? I've never tested this on a projector. OK, fine. We'll full screen it like this. I can do slideshows from within the UI. So look at that, right? That's some sweet transitions there. OK, well, what did I just talk about? This is going to be kind of the summary. It's really too bad the full screen thing doesn't work over a projector. OK, so to recap kind of all the things that we just saw, because I kind of whirlwinded them through the demo, the first thing we really wanted to do in this release is help you work in your large code bases, right? I said this last year, and I'm saying that again. Like, we really believe that Visual Studio and C++ need to be a tool that scales. Hey, go back. Look at that. Totally. This is OK, well, this is terrible. I got to stop the slideshow. I didn't time myself. That's OK. Who needs animation? All right. IntelliSense needs to be scalable, and you saw that, right? The idea is we parse files once, It scales whenever you change your configuration. We don't reparse the world. We allow you to quickly navigate to all these things, right? So it's very usable for that kind of large scale. And then you still get the power of the great kind of correct IntelliSense that is our bread and butter. In fact, it's improved in this release. I guarantee you'll find lots of code where IntelliSense might have failed in the past. It'll succeed while being more scalable. That's pretty sweet. And then, like I said, the MS build system is great, and I only touched on the very kind of tip of it. One of the great things it does as well is it allows you to work in a situation, what we call enlistment consistency. We like to check in a lot of our tools into the source tree. So you know that web service thing with the wsutil.exe that was being run with those props files and targets files? We would check all of that in, right? And then a developer who doesn't work on the build just syncs and will get the build improvements as well. Right? Suddenly, he can just drag and drop a WSDL file and things will just work. That's a really nice kind of user experience for the developer. Wow, I didn't implement all the PowerPoint features. There, okay. So writing code faster, pound include autocomplete, IntelliSense, these things are really fun. The live error reporting, I almost never compiled to fix the errors, except that one time I forgot about one. The class wizard is a great way, right, to iterate and add functionality to an MFC application. I didn't grow up with VC6, but I've really fallen in love with the tool. I really do think it's a great way to be efficient in MFC. So we get it. The navigate to function, I mean, like I said, I really love that one. And it's actually extensible. One of the great things about it is that it's extensible. So you can insert your own provider into that window. So it works for C#, VB, C++ out of the box, and for files. But the Perl, if you had a Perl language service that you were building in Visual Studio, we talked about extensibility being a deep theme. You could throw the symbols in there as well. Modern code, right? There's a lot there I showed you. I tried to kind of touch on all of them in their context. R-value references, really, from now on, you have to start thinking about your object as constructor, copy assignment operator, move constructor, and destructor. That's a bit of a mouthful, but you do it once, and then you get the right behavior and the most efficient in terms of performance. I mean, we've seen cases where large containers in STL, the performance is significantly better once you give it your object the ability to move. The parallel algorithms, I can't stress this enough. You got to go to that talk. You're going to learn tons more. I just touched on the tasks and one parallel algorithm. There's so much more. The agents API is amazingly deep and enables kind of actor-based programming for C++. So in this release, we're really saying, don't write a bunch of gunk that doesn't have to do with your app, right? In C++, you can write high-level code that does the right thing while maintaining all of the speed and power and platform access that it's all about. And speaking of platform, Windows has amazing functionality in this release. So we've updated MFC out of the box to handle Win7, and the Win7 API is really amazing. Direct2D is a great API. But we also have the web services and direct write, a great way to do text rendering. You really don't want to do text rendering yourself. So really hope you pick up some of this functionality. And this is what I'll finish with. Multi-targeting is a feature I didn't demo because it's really not part of what I was doing. But it's a great reason to upgrade. Imagine you could install the IDE right now, get all the functionality I told you about, but still build with the compiler so your manager doesn't freak out that you're changing the libraries and compilers on the day before you ship. So this is a great way to adopt the tooling, right, the IDE, and get kind of all the stuff that you saw there, but fitting within your organization's schedule of we don't just adopt new compilers on 3 days before we ship our product. So this is arguably one of the greatest features that, well, has the simplest UI and it's hard to demo really, but it's really kick-ass. So I listed some of these sessions, and I'm all I'm going to do is recommend the first two there. The first one's right after, it's at lunch, right after lunch, sorry, at 1 o'clock or 1:15. It's by my colleague Rick Malloy, and he does an amazing job of showing you, and he's got a great title. I mean, that title's awesome. And then the next one, the Perspectives on the Future of Programming, has Herb Sutter, a great member of our team, and it'll be, I'm sure, a really cool discussion about where programming's going to go. I hope you enjoyed that, and I'm open to questions. don't know if there's a, oh, there's a microphone actually, but I'll just repeat the questions. Go ahead. Are we going to be supporting C99? Not right now, not in Visual Studio 2010 out of the box, but we're always interested in what scenarios we really do need to enable. Is it the math or whatever? So if you want to leave me your contact or just email me here and we can follow up. Yeah. What about support for managed C++? So I didn't demo it here, but C++ CLI is still part of our business strategy. We think it's a great way, the best way to do interop between managed and native. We absolutely believe it. We use it extensively within DevDiv, within Visual Studio. And the only thing you're going to find in this release, and it's really painful for us, is as part of this re-architecture of the IntelliSense system, we do not have IntelliSense support for C++ CLI. But everything else works. So designers works, unit testing for C++ CLI works, navigation works, all the Navigate 2 functionality works. It was simply an issue of resources and time. Really, we still believe in it deeply strategically, and we are going to do our best to fix this at the earliest possible time. Yeah? Sorry, if you upgrade, sorry, I didn't. So when you upgrade, will everything just work? So the language changes are not too significant in this release in terms of their breakingness of your code. If that's not really English, go ahead. Oh, absolutely. Like all of this stuff works for existing code. You just upgrade your MFC project, your existing project, all of the functionality I showed you. You don't need to write anything additional to get access to it. You can start writing tasks right now. You can start using R value references with anything you've already got. You don't have to add, there's no additional code I had in the background. You don't have to start from the wizard generated code. Yeah? Sorry, I really couldn't hear the question. Yes, so the question is, do we still support OpenMP now that we have this additional parallel APIs? Absolutely, we still support OpenMP. We think that it solves its problem pretty well. We just want to take it to higher level places, right? OpenMP doesn't include concurrent containers. But we're working very carefully with the people that are on the standards body of OpenMP to continue to track to that, as well as Intel, right? We collaborate really well with Intel to make sure that TBB and the parallel APIs that we've built for C++ on our side interact well together, because we really don't want you to adopt one and then think that the schedulers are going to conflict, and we try to make sure it all works together. Yeah. Yes?
You mentioned using MS Build to build Visual Studio.
Yeah.
So how are you scaling across boxes? Because you're probably not waiting on one box, right?
How do we scale MS Build across boxes? So it supports the same kind of parallel project build that we supported in the past. So we still build all of our non-dependent projects in parallel. And we're starting to get a lot of benefit off of multi-core on our build machines. But the main point of it is on our dev machine, it's really just using the local parallelism. And then on build machines, we just make them highly parallel. But we can talk about that more if you want to know more a bit about our, yeah, I have a colleague here who will tell you all about it. Yes?
The restart manager, can you use it for the background applications or services? Or is it just applicable for user interface applications?
Sorry, using what for the background? Restart manager. Oh, Restart Manager, I believe, is designed for UI applications, but like non-services. But I'm not sure. So if you leave me your information, email me. I will definitely confirm that for you. I'm not 100% certain. Yeah, that's a good question. I thought there was a, yeah, go ahead.
I actually have 3 distinct questions.
Excellent.
So you mentioned that the ribbon is actually it's actually a data file that's it's data instead of programming of code.
Yes.
Is this an extension to the RC file format, or is it something different?
So the question there is the ribbon. I said it's a data file, right? It's not code. So is it an extension of the RC file or something else? So it's serialized as an XML file. It loads up in the resource editor as if it were part of your RC file, but it's actually living independently as an XML file, so you can look at it and open it up in an XML viewer and then do fun stuff.
Is that XAML the same stuff that we use for WPF?
It's not the same language as WPF. It's not XAML. This is more of a, because it doesn't include the functionality of like code behind and that kind of rich metadata binding. It's like an RC file, but think of it as a specialized one for just XML. Sorry, for just the ribbon, and it's in the XML format. But you had more questions, so go ahead.
So you, at some point in your demo, you open up your toolbox and drug some code
Yeah.
over in. Is this the beginnings of a code snippet manager?
So we've had that feature for like as long as I've been in Visual Studio. It's a pretty old toolbox trick that we use in demos. Code snippets are something we didn't ship in this release. I personally am relatively passionate about code snippets and would like to see us get there. One thing I will say is, that extensibility that allowed you to add, I added the control click functionality. I highly urge you to go look at that, and you will find that the ability for anyone, including yourself, to add functionality of that nature to the editor is amazing. Like, it is completely open now for people to do this, and I think we're going to see a lot of people providing add-ons that give functionality like that.
And then the data tips, you said that stay around through debugging.
Yeah.
Do those stick around after the application, after Visual Studio exits and you restart? Are those persistent?
I believe they are persisted. I haven't tried it, but I'm pretty sure they are.
Because it'd be really interesting to be able to check those in actually in source code. And,
Right.
and say for everybody who loads the solution, they always get the same.
Yeah. You know what? I should confirm that, and if it's not, I'll definitely bring that feedback back to the debugger team. Yeah, that's a great idea, just persisting things and be able to check that into the source tree. It's lunchtime, so it's okay if everybody leaves. Thanks again.